Let me first start by introducing myself. My name is Labib Matta. I'm the Chief Business Officer at NXN, which is formerly the NexGen group. And to give you a bit of brief of NexGen, NexGen is basically an advisory organization that's been around for the past 10 years. We've been involved in a lot of the smart city and the smart district projects in the region, and this has been always our focus. We started with back in 2006, 2007, when the concept of smart was an alien concept. A lot of people didn't understand what it meant, didn't care about it really. There was a huge confusion about the digital versus smart. And I think we went through the evolution and the wave of development of the concept and its proliferation throughout the world. We bring expertise, international expertise into the region. We've got offices in Dubai, we've got offices in Riyadh, we've got offices in Beirut, and we're heavily aligned with a lot of the technology players as well as have memberships in key standardization bodies like the ITU, ISO, ASHRAE, TM Forum, and so on. Some of the key clients we go through are, you can see some of the clients we have, Smart Dubai, and we'll talk a bit about the case study there, DSO, some of the real estate developers, as well as telecom providers and government entities that we've been working with for the past years. And I would like to jump quickly to one of the interesting cases, which is the Smart Dubai, where we're involved and still involved in the development of the Smart Dubai strategy. NexGen was the initial consultancy advisory that was working with the Smart Dubai and now the Smart Dubai office since the inception of the concept of Smart Dubai, where we were involved in the developing of the master plan, the extensive master plan, as well as the roadmap of the smart city initiatives. This didn't obviously come out of a void. We had a current state assessment done, we had a gap analysis, international benchmarking exercises, future state, which is reflected in the Smart Dubai 2021 vision, as well as identification from there of smart initiatives that would be applicable to the city of Dubai, and of course applicable to the various government entities within the city. We're also heavily involved in the development of the Open Data Law, and in fact the recommendation of the initial Open Data Act, and currently actively participating in the development of the Smart City platform of Smart Dubai, which where we initially put the requirements for, built the tender, managed the selection, and now contributing to the supervision of the implementation of the platform. And this is one of the first, this is actually a first in the world where a city has own smart district platform or smart city platform that allows it to ingest data from various government entities across the city, analyze this data and provide advanced services as well as open the data to various stakeholders. Another interesting case which I would like to bring up to your attention is the Silicon Park at Dubai Silicon Oasis. And this is more related to the smart district concept. So Smart Dubai is a city-type implementation, city-type consultancy, while Silicon Park is more a district-type implementation. And with Silicon Park, this is an innovative park that's being developed and built at Dubai Silicon Oasis Authority. And what we did there is we started with the KPIs of what needs to happen in this park for it to be smart. So what are the services, what are the key performance indicators, what are the targets that we need to have in order for this park to be smart? We started with ITU-based KPIs, as well as ISO, some of the ISO smart community standards. We took those, and then of course we mapped them to what makes sense locally in Dubai, and then mapped them to a initial list of smart services that need to be delivered. From there, of course, a technology and an ICT master plan was developed for the Silicon Park in order to ensure that we are able to hit those services and then deliver them to the residents, businesses, and cover the infrastructure of the Silicon Park. A lot of these services are related to the people living in the district, but also a lot of these other services are related to managing the infrastructure of the Silicon Park in an intelligent or smart way. From here, I would like to move to the concept of the presentation, which basically acts as a good intro and actually a starting point for this conference, where you're going to be getting into the sessions, into a lot of sessions on technology and services that are related to smart. But let's start first, take a step back and look at what smart cities and smart districts means and how are they interrelated. If we look at a smart city, and there are multiple definitions for smart city, but the reality is if we look at the ITU, which is a widely accepted definition today, even integrated within some of the ISO standards, a smart sustainable city is an innovative city that uses ICT, information communication technology, to enable quality of life. So the keyword is quality of life, quality of living, efficiency of the city operations and services, and its competitiveness, while ensuring that it meets the needs of the present and future generations in terms of economic, social, and environmental sustainability. So while the concept of smart may sound like it's an ICT concept or it's a digital concept, the reality is that its objectives are city concepts. There are strategic, quality of life, economic, social, and environmental sustainability objectives that are achieved through the information and communication technology implementation. And if we take it one step further to understand how is that done, then we look at how our cities run today and what's the problem with the functioning of the cities. So cities normally consist of systems. A city is a system of systems. And these systems work in silos. They don't talk to each other. They don't communicate. They don't exchange data. They don't leverage synergies from one system to another. And when I talk about systems, I'm talking about an energy system, or a water system, or a transportation, or city services, etc. And yes, these systems are run by different entities within the city, or different stakeholders within the city. So the interest, or the benefit, and the value generated by the smart city is actually the integration and the interconnectedness of these systems together, in order to allow the exchange of data and the exchange of services between these entities first, and then next, the correlation with the input from the people living in the city or the district. So yeah, we can deploy the best services from a certain government entity, but that's only measured by the government entity itself or by other government entity, and no input is provided from the people receiving the service. What about the people and the residents living in the city? What do they think of that service? What is the impact of changes or new plans for the city or the district if these people are not involved? What about the businesses? How do they perceive the services they're getting? Is it improving their business operations, or is it impeding it? These are some of the questions that Smart City is trying to address, and the way it addresses this is by correlating the integration of these systems with inputs from sensing networks that are being developed in cities and districts, from mobility, i.e. mobile phones, as well as connectivity, from social media, and bringing all these inputs together to make sure that first we have a good picture about what's going on in the city, a holistic picture that covers all the city stakeholders. Two, we are able to identify problematic services that need to be improved. And three, plan for innovative and better services for the future. That's really the objective of the city. If we are able to achieve that, then what in reality we are doing is we are improving the quality of life of people and businesses living in the city. And we are also ensuring economic as well as environmental stability, sustainability for the city, and making sure that it's a differentiated, innovative city. So this is really the value of the smart city. And this value is actually translated or contributed to through districts. A city consists of districts. Some people will use the word districts, other people will use communities. You will see in the eyes of the word community, you will see that as well in the BSI, but it's basically the clusters that form a city. And these clusters are really focused on their own operations, on their own services, and it is the city's role to provide the orchestration and the governance and the connectivity, as well as the cooperation and coordination between these various clusters. And we'll talk a little bit about that more. Normally, the government objectives from moving with a smart city strategy are, as we discussed, are in line with the definition. So quality of life, growth, sustainability, and efficiency. But for districts, there is a bit of a different objective. Districts are clusters which are developed by private developers and sometimes by government developers. On top of aligning with the government initiatives and the government objectives, districts have to reduce their operational costs. From a facility operations, energy management or energy costs, utilities costs, etc. They have to generate revenue. They have to be able to sell services to the residents, and they have to differentiate because the competition is big between various districts. If they're going to attract people and we're going to attract businesses, they need to be able to differentiate. They need to improve the value of their assets as well. And of course, at the end, they need to align with the smart city and national initiatives. In Dubai, Dubai Real Estate Institute is of course working on the Smart District Guidelines. We had a version 1.0, which was a draft version, which was issued around a year and a half ago, and that's being developed further in order to make sure that that becomes officially published. And that will identify some of the key performance indicators as well as measures that need to be in the district for it to qualify to be smart. This is a bit of a view about the concept and how it's proliferating in the world. As we said, 10 years ago, nobody wanted to hear about this, or if they heard about it, nobody wanted to understand what it means. But if we look today, what's going on around the world, there is a huge proliferation of cities. We just selected some of them. And as we can see that each of these cities have selected certain focus areas that they will do. So not a single city will go and do everything. Nobody can do everything. They select key focus areas, and we'll talk about them, or dimensions that we call them, that allow us to obviously move forward, or that allows them to move forward and focus on those areas that are essential to their competitiveness and their survival. And in order to address these objectives and challenges, a smart city framework has been basically put in place. It's been adopted by the European Union. Modifications of it are also being used in Asia, which really ranks the smart city or classifies the challenges and the objectives of smart city into 6 dimensions. We talk about economy, smart environment, living, mobility, people, and governance. And of course, all of this is empowered or enabled by the information and communication technology. The ability to break the problem into dimensions and then look into each dimension and understand how we can address the issues within the dimensions allows us to solve the problem and move forward into a smart city progress. And of course, as I said, not all cities will do everything. For example, if we look at Dubai, as part of the Dubai Smart City Strategy, the focus is economy and living, quality of life. Happiness is a key objective of Dubai. And therefore, again, other cities like Barcelona would be using tourism as one of their objectives and infrastructure. So different focus areas within the dimensions. And that takes us to actually what's the difference between a district and the city, and how are they basically interrelated. So if you look at the district level or at the community level, they're normally focused mainly on 3 dimensions, which is the smart living with its focus areas, which are buildings, i.e. housing, security, safety and security, health and education. These are, if you look at these 4 focus areas under smart living, these are defining the quality of life. They define the impact, the quality of life index, and impact the quality of life for people living in the district. And then if we look at mobility, we're talking about road infrastructure, public transport, intelligent transport and traffic management system, and then environment, which is energy, water, waste. This is at the district level because that's contained within the operations of the district, but it doesn't mean that the district doesn't contribute to the overall city status. The district allows for contribution to the smart economy in terms of productivity, entrepreneurship, attraction of businesses, foreign investment in the clusters, and that's been very successful going on here in Dubai and across the UAE. And if we look at that, these dimensions feed into the smart city as a whole, where the city now is more bothered about the quality for people, under smart people, about governance, how do we govern and orchestrate all these initiatives at the city level, all the coordination and alignment between the various districts and government entities, and of course the strategic objectives from an economy perspective. All of this is of course empowered by ICT, but that gives us a bit of a view of a district versus a city. And let's not say that one is ahead of the other. In certain cases where we're seeing some cities developing central guidelines and central initiatives or directions to move into the smart or defining smart initiatives and roadmap. In other cases, we see where the district becomes the innovation and incubation place where a lot of these smart services and ideas are tried, are implemented, and then they're extended eventually to other districts or to the city itself. In Dubai is more of a centralized approach, as well as we see where there's a lot of districts trying to differentiate and really comply even ahead of regulations or ahead of initiatives. In other places, we see it's more of a district base. In other countries in the Gulf, in Saudi Arabia, where we see more it's district based, which are trying to differentiate with the lack of yet of central direction. So again, these are complementary. One feeds the other, but at the end of the day, the concept is going to be proliferated whether at the district level in a test cases or at the city level in a more of a centralized guidelines and initiatives and services. And if we consider what are under the dimensions, so under the district dimensions, we had the mobility, living, and environment. And if I look quickly under each dimension, what are the key focus areas or potential initiatives that can happen? Under the environment, the focus is to use new technologies to protect and provide the city's environment. And that means we're looking at energy management, noise and pollution management and reduction, sustainable resource management, green buildings, smart water and waste. These are the kind of initiatives that fit into that dimension. And I'm sure you're going to see in the later sessions today a lot of technologies and discussions on the bits and pieces that go there. But we are talking about the bigger picture here and the higher level of how this is being developed at the district and eventually at the city level. On the smart living, of course, initiatives related to smart buildings, smart education, healthcare and security, public safety and security, emergency response, unified urban security and analytics, smart hospitals and integrated with clinics, which is a lot of the key initiatives are happening now in the UAE, integrated EMRs, electronic medical records that are getting centralized as well as shared with clinics, connected schools and e-enabled learning are all key initiatives that will impact the lives of people living in the cities. Of course, we're not forgetting smart housing and smart home. And when we talk about housing, we're talking about smart, sustainable buildings and the impact of those buildings on the quality of life of people living in those from a pollution, from a comfort level, from satisfaction, etc. Smart mobility, and we're talking here about the road infrastructure, the parking, public transport, as well as the intelligent traffic management service, as well as the fleet management. These are all initiatives. They're general initiatives, and as we said, we start with a high list, but at the end of the day, we go back to what are the performance indicators we're trying to achieve? What are the dimensions we want to excel in? Based on those, some of the breakdown of these initiatives happens, and then they are taken forward into a master planning exercise. And at the end, it's the economy from a innovation, productivity, as well as entrepreneurship perspective. So in a nutshell, smart districts are driving smart cities enable smart districts. I think the word smart is getting more and more clarified, it's being more and more defined, and at the heart of it, it's the interconnectedness and the data that we can pull from the various city assets as well as the city stakeholders and the intelligence and the use that we can make out of this data to improve the operations and the services provided to the city businesses and residents. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you.